say the spiel?
Oh, yeah, first the housekeeping items. So, good evening, my name is Kathy Richardson, I'm the City Sustainability Director. A few housekeeping items for tonight's Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. And all board members on Zoom, please keep your video on during the meeting. All others, keep your video off unless you are participating during the meeting. If you're having any trouble, you can send me a chat. And the city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. All right, thanks. Did you want me to go ahead and mention the date?
Yeah, let's start out with the dates of the meetings.
Yeah, just really quick. So I did get a question from our city clerk's office if we wanted to continue to use the city commission room on Thursdays for this board meeting in 2026. So there's another group that's already looking at changing some dates. And we wanted to confirm, so you all have priority because you already are meeting on Thursday evenings. So if you wanted to continue that schedule through 2026, just let me know, or if you all are feeling like maybe there needs to be a date change.
Okay. Well, I'm fine with continuing this date unless there's other people that would prefer a different day. Okay. Chris?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good, fine, and flexible if needs to change.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's keep it on Thursdays for now.
Okay, so I will confirm with them that for 2026, it will be the same meeting schedule as this year.
Unless, thank you for joining.
Yes.
We just brought up the idea of, do we want to continue to have the meetings on Thursday evenings in 2026? Is that fine by you?
I'm good with any day.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Okay, we'll confirm that then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking care of that. Now we need to move on to the action item, that is to continue our discussion of the greenhouse gas emission priority, KPI, and the policies we've been talking about to address those.
Can we do B first, approve minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Okay, we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I will abstain
Aye.
since I wasn't here.
Okay. Okay,
All right,
and then public comment.
public comment.
And I can read that. The public may speak to any items or issues except those scheduled on the agenda after first being recognized by the chair. Public comment on agenda items will be received during the meeting. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes of public comment on any one topic. Is there any public comment in the room? Nobody here except for a reporter, and online. Let me make sure I haven't missed anyone. All right. On to agenda item number 1.
Okay, so as I jumped ahead by mistake, we're going to talk about the policy draft that Mosin presented to us online for tonight's meeting. So Mosin, do you want to make any comments?
The draft, the updated draft that I submitted is just more detailed compared to the previous version, and reflecting the discussions that we had and all the areas that we needed to think about. We can go through details as needed. There are a few other things that I'd like to mention for now, and if we needed to go through them, like I had a couple email communications with Leah Roslin, the chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, and they would be interested in having a joint meeting with ESAP too, and they are supportive of this, and Leah already provided some very good feedback. that would be very helpful. And there are a few comments and concerns that I saw were posted under the report on the Journal World, and some of them are valid concerns, some of them are not, and we could discuss them and see which one of them could be reflected either in the letter or in the policy. And that's it for now.
Okay. We also then had a draft of a fact-finding piece. And do we want to discuss that, or do we want to move on to the policy recommendation letter to the commissioners? It was,
I think I'd like to just mention that in the last meeting, we spent a lot of time talking about how to get additional information on this topic, as well as the topic of required parking for apartments and things like that. And it was decided that the information that Mosin had put out is fantastic and the policy draft is great. But if you wanted to actually go out and ask people questions, you would have to knock that down into a shorter form, which was what I was tasked with doing and did. And it's just your stuff in a shorter form, that's all it is. And then also to do the same thing on an informational basis on the parking suggestions that somebody brought in, really just informational. That got translated into, you're writing a parking draft and I'm writing a policy proposal by the time it made it out of this meeting, which is not what we discussed at all. And then, in the meantime, now that we're having the next meeting, all of that is gone, and we are writing a letter to the commissioners and a draft policy, which last time you said we're not allowed to write, that had to be done by the city. So I guess I'm just a little confused at the process. Why are we bothering with having discussion if it's just going to get crushed for a new discussion
well,
down the road?
I
And
think
if we're
that
not going to do any fact-finding,
Uh-huh.
then you certainly don't need a one-page summary, and we don't need to look at it.
I think the issue is that we need to find out, before we go to the public and do fact-finding, we need to find out if the commissioners think this is something that they want us to go forward with. And so that was the discussion that was had.
Well, the previous discussion was that we would get all the information before going forward to the commissioners, because the other discussion was that there's no money for this at all. So if you go in with something, for example, we need so much for database, somebody's got to watch a database, somebody's got to do a front end, somebody's got to do this, somebody's got to do that, there's no money for it, because we're in a hole right now. So that is another question where, and again, I'm not opposed to this, I think it's a good idea. It's just procedurally, we seem to have wandered off into space here.
Well, I think going to doing a fact-finding draft and spreading the word on that requires funds from the city, right? And so if we want to do that, we need to make sure that this is a policy direction that the city commission wants us to go into. So that's why we talked about having this letter to explore whether or not this is something that they support. And if they support, then we can move forward with getting additional information.
Okay, so that was 2 meetings ago that decision was made. I don't remember that.
No, this
decision.
was a discussion between Kathy and myself and Chris.
Oh, okay.
It's when we were talking about the agenda for today. And so we talked about that this was the appropriate, I think, the appropriate approach to use based on us being advisory commission,
I would
advisory to the
suggest that we
commission.
skip agenda item number 2 and move on. Or the fact-finding, it's not relevant.
I do want to address one other item that you mentioned. So I didn't get confirmation till this afternoon. Otherwise, I would have put it on number 2 as a future ESAB meeting agenda item. And this is to no fault of Chloe's at all. She's been extremely busy.
Oh, yeah.
But there was a follow-up on the letter for the city commission that you were all going to review that Chloe had volunteered to take on. There's been a lot of activity this last month.
I'm not concerned
And
about that
it wasn't a
themselves.
time-sensitive item, so I told you, and seriously, don't worry about it. We can put it in for next meeting. So that item is not dropped, and I should have reflected it
I'm
here.
not concerned with that in the
Okay, I'm just making sure that procedurally that was going
Yeah,
to
no,
come
no,
up for this meeting, but it's been delayed by one more meeting.
But the decision's been made that we are moving forward with a written policy, that is going to be presented to the commissioners, and we will get a yea or nay vote on that policy.
No, so we're not writing a policy. We're not supposed to write policy. We're supposed to do a preliminary recommendation, and then they decide whether or not they want us to pursue this. That's my understanding.
That's correct, and nothing has been decided until there's a vote. This is an action item, which the board could go a different
We
direction.
can still decide what we want to do. Like,
Yes.
I wasn't
Right.
here last time. None of this is set. We kind of have to decide how we're
Yeah,
going to
right.
move forward
This is
with
an
this.
action for you tonight.
Right,
to
so we
take.
need to decide how we're going to move forward. We could decide that we still want to do the fact finding and do that first.
Yeah.
And then do our letter, but none of that is decided. It was just brought up between Chris and you that we might want to do a letter first.
Right, so we might want to go to the commission to find out if this is a direction that they're interested in going in, because we thought that the fact-finding piece was going to take resources
To do.
that we don't have available to us unless the commission decides that this is
They're
the
interested in
direction
this and
that we
wanting
want
to
us to
use
go
it.
into.
Chris is,
Can I just add really quick with the group? I think the important part here is that we gained procedural clarity from the city on how to move forward with this policy and future policy ideas. We explore, we have initial conversations, we do initial research. We can start drafting materials like the draft policy and like the draft fact finding, but ultimately a preliminary suggestion in the form of a letter that goes to the commission for review to make a decision on or to give us additional direction is the first step that we should take. So that's why we were asked to also draft a policy recommendation letter, which is effectively me again going to Dave and Wilson's documents and pulling it into a letter form with some rationale of why we think this should be pursued in more detail with additional support from the city. So I'm just saying, I guess, since last meeting to now, we've gained procedural clarity, which we can use moving forward with future policies so that this confusion doesn't happen again.
one other piece of clarification, just for maybe others. This policy recommendation, this policy that the board is currently interested in pursuing, is not something that was directed as work for you from the city commission, and it's also not something that is being worked on from staff, right? So item number 2, you'll see ordinance 9744. That is a policy work that is being brought to you by the staff, and that is with the city commission that has already let us know that, yes, we are ready to open that ordinance up and work on that, some edits, with the staff working on it, with the Environmental Sustainability Advisory Board and the Connected City Advisory Board. So that was very clear direction from the city commission. This item number 1 is not anything that the commission has directed to staff or to this board, hey, you should work on a policy on utility disclosure, or, so it's being worked on a little bit different, right? Because this isn't in any of the staff's work schedule, like, we're not working on this. This is an idea that came from the board. So I believe that that is what Nancy and Chris are trying to communicate, like, let's check and make sure from the commission that this is an item that they want you working on.
So it does address a KPI that they set out as a priority, but not with this specific approach to address the KPI. So that is what we wanted to get clarification on, if this is something they're interested in moving forward with. So, I mean, this is open for discussion. If this isn't where we want to go next with it, that's, you know, a vote from this group. But that was our thinking, that it might be worthwhile getting direction from them before we move forward.
I mean,
It's really Kathy's call. I mean, do you go to the commission and say, here's a very, beginning idea, do you have any interest? Or do you go to the commission with something that's reasonably well-formed? And that's your call. We had originally talked about this as, you don't go to the commission until something's reasonably well-formed, and you might get them excited about it, like the plastics or something like that. But if you go to the commission every time we want to discuss a new topic, sure, that's up to you. I mean, it's what's better.
I mean, I think, yeah, in my opinion, I think that's kind of up to us to decide, right?
Yes.
Because we get to decide, I mean, ultimately, to get anything done, we have to convince the commission that they want to do it, right? That's our end goal here, and writing them a letter is the way we do it. We have to decide now as a group, do we think it's ready for that, or do we need to do more to convince them that this is an important thing to do? And I think that's what we really just need to discuss right now, is do we feel like we're ready for this? Because that is the next step to actually make something happen, as opposed to us just talking about it in our meeting.
Yeah, and I feel like we've been talking about this
Yeah.
for the entire year, basically, right? So, and Mosen has lots of details on this policy. So my thought was, we might be at the level where we're ready to take to the commission. But that's my opinion, and everybody else has their own thoughts, and we need to air them out.
I think I'm fine with that. I do, kind of to your point, like wonder if it's like they're gonna, because there's no resources, they'll just say no, and then like had we otherwise had some more, I don't know, more persuasive arguments ready, or if we had more data, whatever, then like that would be an easier sell. But also we could do all that, and ultimately they could say no, so maybe this saves us that time. But also I feel like it's one of those things where like if they say no because we don't have like, I don't know, enough information, then we kind of have to like respect that. Like it's hard to like ask for permission, and then if we get a no, like then keep going for it, or just like drop it entirely. This was kind of for naught, and then picking an entirely new topic is my concern. But that's always going to be the option. Like they always have the right to say no, whether it's now or later. So I don't know that I have like a strong opinion one way or another.
So thinking about the plastic bag ban that we worked on for a long time, that was taken to them. They by this group, elementary school group, they said, yes, work on this. And then when we came to them with more solid information, they asked for additional information. They asked us to go and get public opinion and public input, and get input from lots of different people who were involved, like grocery store people and people who would be impacted, not just public at large. And so they gave us the opportunity to then say, okay, this is something we think we're interested in, but we need more information. And if they're interested in this, I wonder if that is the same approach they'll do, is that, yeah, this is a good start, this is something we want to do, we need to get more information. And I think because the budget's already set for this year, and of course this isn't in the budget, then this is something that we're going to schedule out. So it's not going to happen right away. But if it's on the agenda for the following year, then we may be able to get resources that we would need to eventually put this in place. These things take a really long time. So
That all sounds good. And then follow up kind of on that notion of time. So if we were to write a letter, is that something that like just you and Kathy would draft and it would get sent? Would we have a response by next time from them? Would we be, okay.
So this is a draft of the letter we were thinking to work on and have input from everybody. It would be given to the commission, and then they would decide whether we would put it on the consent agenda, if I remember correctly, and then they would choose whether to pull it out for discussion or to ask us to do a presentation.
Yes, and I did ask for a little bit of feedback on what policy recommendation, what it should look like to move forward to commission. And I don't know if you all noted at the end of the letter that Chris had drafted, is he kept those bullets there, which were super helpful if the board decides that you're ready to move forward with this step. The city manager's office had recommended these 4 bullets, which is addressing the relative priority of this recommendation along with the other work of the ESAB and the environmental sustainability commitment and our existing work schedules, priorities, and resources. Number 2 is to address overall work and priorities of the city in the budget. So you want to, get into some of the budget conversation as well. Number 4 is to evaluate the resources like public engagement, communication, we were talking about this last meeting, implementation, what's that going to take, legal and political that this will involve. And number 4, it's also important to estimate the KPI impact expected with this investment. So if this policy were to move forward and we kind of know what the resources needed are going to be, and it's, it happens, how much are we going to move the needle on this KPI forward? So those are just some good bullets. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in to say that I left, if you looked at the letter, there's placeholders for us to flesh out a response to each of those bullets. So there's additional work that needs to be done by us to actually fill out the rest of that letter, and that includes timeline recommendations, resource requirements from the city to execute our vision of what it looks like post direction from the board, or from the commission, sorry.
So, yeah, I mean, after hearing this and looking at this, for me, this seems to make a lot of sense as the next steps to actually be able to make better decisions is drafting this letter with these 4 bullet points. And in that process, if we're trying to do these 4 things, we realize we don't have enough information in one of those bullet points, that probably means we need to go back and get that before we submit this, right?
Yeah.
So I really like these 4 bullet points because I think that gives me now a metric to say, okay, how well would this letter address those 4 bullet points? And if I feel like there's lacking, then I could be like concretely, no, we need to go do this before.
Yeah, and that's why we talked about drafting something so we could see where the holes were
Yeah.
that we need to address and need to fill if we want to go forward with this at this time or after we
Fix those things and
fill in the
figure out.
blanks. Yeah.
I do want to flag some of the, this is my own perspective, having gone through the process of trying to draft the letter. I do think some of the expectations of material that we're supposed to put in that letter are difficult for us to ascertain or obtain. Like having a full grasp and understanding of the budget and work plans of 2026 is, for the whole city, is I think quite challenging. Even for Kathy, your work is quite challenging. So I think that the restrictions put on us to meet at this meeting and work on these documents without having other meetings to work on the documents as a group. The expectations to the time allotments and the restrictions placed on us are kind of in misalignment because they want a lot of thoughtful, detailed work in this early letter that will take a lot of time. So I'm just flagging that.
Yeah, I mean, really, that statement, address the overall work and priority of the city and budget, that's outside the scope of our advisory board.
I could be wrong in what this is assessing. I read that more as like address how this policy is going to affect the overall priorities in the city budget, right? So if we're like, we need to talk about like how much of a budget is this going to be if implemented.
Okay.
That's how I read it. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong.
And Josh, that's what I think is reasonable, and that's why in the draft of the letter, I just put space for us to outline what's the total budget up front, what are the ongoing costs, and then what are the resources we're requiring in fiscal year 2026. So I think that's enough for them to work through whether this is reasonable within, I don't think we need to go in detail and make a case of how this I think we have to do their job for them, I guess.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's just like relative, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, relative to this, like how much would this be budget-wise? Like we are proposing to take up 50% of the city's budget for something, right? It's not-
Yeah, and I think that these are just to address, so if you put yourself in a commissioner's chair, right? They're not just focused on this one policy recommendation or possible project. They have the view, that big, wide view. So they're trying to figure out, how does this fit? And I know I've said this before, but this was like one of the first meetings of when I was trying to explain to you all how we were going through this process with the strategic plan to kind of put at the table some priority KPIs, because there's way too many key performance indicators, right? And so it's hard because the strategic plan and those KPIs inform the budget, so they kind of go hand in hand. But it's hard when you have 100, right? So what we were doing is prioritizing, elevating some KPIs. So the 3 that I talked about that we elevated for environmental sustainability, that's where we're spending our budget, right? Those are the priorities. And your policy recommendation does fall into, it's a strategy of one of those. It's not a strategy that has been outlined by staff. You know, there are other strategies that we've come up with, but that's what you're, you know, kind of that conversation we had last week. That's another thing, like, where if this is going to make more of an impact than, you know, that you feel some of the other strategies will, and the commission says, ooh, you know, well, we want to raise this one and prioritize this, but we're going to have to drop this other work because the work schedules are full, right? We've outlined what those are, but I just wanted to mention that priority KPIs is where the budget is it's kind of aligned to that. It's where it's prioritized.
But that doesn't mean this couldn't get in line after those. That's where I was thinking, is that this is something to put forth as a recommendation for the future.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So even if this doesn't supersede any of the policies that
Right.
staff are working on, it's certainly something for them to think about for the next policy to
Correct.
be working on.
We were given the task of thinking of strategies that would be for over the next year, maybe 2 years, but really, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to be working on in this next year, which is 2025 we've been working on, and some of the strategies go till like mid of 2026. So yeah, so once you get some of that work, you know, what comes next?
And so I think that we're advisory, so we are making advice on how to address what policies, what approaches we can use to achieve the goals of the KPIs that have been put out there as priority for the city. So, yeah, we may not have the funds this year, but this is something we would get in line for.
In my view, the letter could take different directions based on where we want it to go. It could, for this first step, I think it would be helpful to get the commission's blessing to explore this, rather than getting their go for this as something that they're gonna adopt. Reflecting back, it was 2 or 3 years ago that I emailed one of the commissioners about that Kansas Reflector op-ed, and that email was initiated all this process. Then Kathy was CC'd on that email, and that's how it got on the agenda. So, and I think this is a game of which issue has the more significance for the community. So if we think this is something worthy of pursuing, then we need to get their blessing to explore this, and then in the next step, go to them with more details fleshed out, how to implement it, how to adopt it, how to get community values into it. But I think it would be helpful to get their thumbs up to do this, and for them to support this as something that they think might contribute to the community if worked on well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the renters are such a large population of Lawrence that this could be put forth as a really important piece to address. the KPI on energy.
I guess my issue is, it's not with the proposal. My issue is that we have spent a lot of time talking about this.
Yeah.
And what we're basically saying is that time's a waste. None of that is actually going to be relevant, because we've talked about going out to the community, we've talked about what is the scope, we've talked about what is a mandate and what is not a mandate, what's voluntary and what's not voluntary, how are you gonna pay for it? Are we gonna go out and do fact-finding? The answer was yes, we are. Now,
Well, that was all in the last meeting.
no, that's been over the last 5 meetings, which has been all a year, really. And now we just come up and say, okay, we're writing a letter, and this is what's gonna be in it, and here's the policy, get over it. And I don't know, I'm not.
That's not, Dave, that's not what's in the letter. I think what's in the letter is just, this is the broad idea, this is the potential impact of that idea. Mosin has done substantial research to think through this critically. We want to engage the community moving forward. Is there interest from the commission for us to do exactly what you're talking about, Dave? I don't think what we've done in past meetings is wasted by any means. We have the other draft. Like, we're ready to hit the ground running if the commission says, yes, please pursue this. So this is more just a temperature check on, is there appetite for this at the commission level? And I think Mosin bringing up another advisory board, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, is interested in collaborating on this. We put that in the letter. Like, we've already had a conversation. There's interest in this policy across multiple advisory boards. Put that in our milestones, or put that in our plan. So if anything, this is just saying, like, we've done our work. We're ready to move forward to do deeper work. Can we do that? But I think now, my feeling is now is the time to send this, because I don't want to spend a full year. I think there's other policy ideas and priorities that we should get to. I don't think we should keep spinning our wheels on this.
Especially if they decide that this isn't something that they're at all interested in.
And I can resonate with your frustrations, Dave, because we have spent a lot of time talking about this. And honestly, I feel like had we had these like 4 bullet points, we could have focused a lot more of our discussion on meeting these, because this is the next step. But I also think that that's sort of part of us being a new advisory board and not really knowing what we're doing. I think we all sort of have our feet under us much better now. Mm-hmm. And we probably use that time more, not very efficient over the last year. But I think we've learned from that. And I think now in the future, we can be more efficient on how we streamline our discussions and talk about things so that we don't feel like it's a gigantic waste in that sense. Because we did spend a lot of time talking about things that, in the end, if they decide this is not what they want to pursue, will feel like a gigantic waste of time. But it maybe not be, because we had to learn the process. At least I know I did, right? I was pretty unsure about how everything works. I feel like I'm getting a better idea of this.
That's completely valid. I do very much feel like we could have made this decision in January, sent this letter up, known what we were doing, and moved on to the next thing.
But in January, we didn't even have the KPI.
Well, you had the policy. That's all you need. I mean, Mosin has done a fantastic job of putting this together. It's changed a little bit.
Right.
But that policy existed when I first joined this council back last fall. Mm-hmm. We could have at that point said, okay, let's bring this policy to the board, see if they're interested. And it would have saved 9 months of discussion that is now pretty much irrelevant, because none of the things that we've discussed have actually changed anything. And I do find that very frustrating. I mean, I'm happy, very happy to try to be part of those.
Okay.
But don't waste my time. I mean, we're all showing up on 6 o'clock and we spend a couple hours, and certainly the last meeting was a complete and utter waste of time, except possibly for the gentleman who came in and talked about parking, and I think that might be interesting down the road. So that's my frustration. I agree it's a learning process. I knew nothing about this. But in the future, let's go to the commission. If we've got an idea, go to the commission.
Well, I think we need to have enough discussion of it amongst ourselves to find out if that's really where we want to go, and have enough fleshed out so that it.
But in this particular case, the policy existed a year ago. There
And-
was no need for discussion beyond, this is what's in the policy, here's some questions. Could have done that in a night.
Okay.
Well, and I think that, yeah, again, this 4 bullet points give us a nice metric of what information and what kind of discussion we need to have on any future policies, right? Because
Yeah.
in the end, we got to write a letter that addresses these, because that's what they're going to want to see. And if we haven't talked enough about stuff to address those, then we got to keep working. But I agree, I think we're probably in a place where we can put something together.
And we didn't get this outline until
I know.
after we even set the agenda.
Yep, and I understand that, and this is fine, and I think this is part of that learning process.
I have a couple points to build on the frustration. First is that over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years I've been on the board, my observation, I've been learning the first few years, and my observation has been that as advisory board members, we're not staff, we're not employees of the city, and we don't spend more than 1 hour a month together. So this job basically relies on the individual efforts that happens beyond this meeting. And most of the times, things go forward with the work that is done outside of the meeting. So,
Can I bring up a quick point? And again, you are doing a fantastic job, but we have also been told that we cannot work outside the meeting. We,
no,
in fact,
mind
cannot
it,
work
like, I
outside
worked
this meeting.
individually on many
Oh,
fronts.
no, I understand this. And
So-
what you've put together is fantastic, but we were even doing something as simple as trying to draft a letter. And we were told that you cannot draft a letter that you actually edit outside of the meeting. It has to be done in the meeting,
Right.
I
which
think
means
if we have
we can't do
ideas, we need to bring it to the table or communicate it with Kathy to be discussed. Otherwise, we can't wait for things to come up at the meeting. There's not enough time for that. And to the inefficiency point you're raising, that's absolutely right, and it's frustrating, but I think, one, it's to some extent intentional, because that's how democracy works. We need to discuss. I have this idea, I think it's worthy, but if we rush it, we might not. Even I was thinking about this 2 years ago. Right now, I'm thinking way differently than I was thinking about it 2 years ago. And I think all the discussions that we've had, all the communications outside of this group has made it better. And this is not a private company. We make mistakes, it's on us, but this is something that we make a mistake, this is gonna affect many people. That, I think some part of it is intentional, but I get the frustration. But the assumption is not that this process must be efficient. But, like, I didn't know that this letter was being drafted, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's good, we're going to the committee.
it is
to
a
the
good
commission.
idea, but it was not ever discussed. It was
But,
not discussed.
no, that's why I brought it here today.
Right.
Some draft of something for us to start with, we don't have to do it.
No.
The idea is that if we want to go to the commission, we need a place to start.
I have
That's all.
absolutely voiced my gripes quite a bit, so why don't we go to the letter itself
Okay,
and try editing it, because I think it is a very good start. I just think we should have done it months ago.
okay. Fair enough. All right. So I think we have a great start. I think that there are places that are placeholders with X's, and if people have some suggestions for those slots, I know you've got some work that you've done on it.
Yeah, I might have some rough numbers for the X's in the draft, and a couple suggestions, like most of the times when pitching a piece of policy, it would be helpful to also depict its association with, demonstrate its association with economic impact and health impact, because those are the things that make a policy politically viable.
Okay.
And I need to figure out what these are.
So that would be in the rationale, or,
Um, there's a sentence here, insert study data, renter insecurities and how these savings, that would be a place for it.
okay.
Yeah, and can I speak to this first paragraph and second paragraph of background and rationale are effectively just us getting very clear on how this policy tackles the two KPIs that fit within the city's strategic plan. So most of I'm fully in support of adding like public health benefits of this policy. If there is a KPI that we can tack that onto as a third one, that would be great. But if there's not, we just might frame it as this is an additional benefit.
And I think, don't we want to emphasize that this is the KPI that the city has chosen to prioritize?
You can call it a priority KPI. I'm not sure if SWN5 is a priority KPI, but I can look that up. I just know SWN14, that's the environmental sustainability one, is a priority KPI.
Okay.
And this is where I think collaborating with the Affordable Housing Advisory Board on SW5, I'm assuming that is their priority KPI, but we could talk to them about that.
I think it would also be helpful to add a few points about the impacts of this beyond informed decision-making, like that it makes a database for the city to use for other decisions as well, for allocating resources to projects and things like that. And I had some other thing as well.
So I think we need some milestones and timeline here.
Well, Wilson's thinking too, sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
No, go ahead.
There's a little bit of a lag. Okay, the other part that I think is useful to call out, just to flag the amount of groundwork we've already done. In addition, like right before the milestones paragraph and the proposed next steps paragraph, this conversation made me think to also include a call out that Dave has worked on a sheet to do public engagement work that we're ready to like, move forward with. So that could go after Mosin has drafted a comprehensive policy that he can present at a future meeting. Right after that, saying that Dave has worked on a handout that we can use in public engagement. Put that there.
It looks like SWN5 is a priority KPI.
It is a priority?
Okay, sorry, just wanted to check that.
Well, the rest of the document, or at least some more of it?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Did you want to go past the background?
Kind of discussing bits and pieces.
Okay,
Kathy, would you share that, please?
yes. Good thinking. Okay. Can you see it, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So, Nelson, do you have any idea how much it would cost to do this type of database that if this necessary? Do we have numbers from other cities?
Not accurate ones, no.
But I wonder if that's something we could get from other cities. What do you think?
It might be possible to think about the resources that needs to go into this
Uh-huh.
and find out some similar jobs and people that are doing, how much those services cost,
Okay,
but I don't have anything ready. My very rough estimation would be like 10K a year for maintaining this and some upfront cost about 50, 60K to
So
set
Kathy,
up the system, but I
does,
don't
does
know.
the city already have a contract with somebody to do like asset management software type of things? Because I would imagine if they do, a lot of cities do, this could be something that could be like an add-on for something, depending on what kind of software they use for that
Yeah.
or things. It could possibly be something they could get.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something.
I wonder if the other approach would just be to put this on landlords, that they need to obtain the data and share it with their,
I think that would be a lot
Potential.
harder to regulate.
would it?
Yeah,
Okay.
the easiest and most
It would make it really difficult for individuals.
possible way would be for
find it.
landlords to get building level data from Evergy and
Uh-huh.
submit to the city, because there's privacy concerns, so
Okay,
can't be disclosed.
you can't, okay.
I think you'd have to have some sort of system in place for landlords to go enter the information and the city to maintain.
Yeah, they can ask for aggregate building level data, and when they get it, they can submit it to the city, and city make it, present it in a standardized way. And for, like, Leah Roslin from Affordable Housing Advisory Board, she was interested in not only thinking about like multi-unit complexes, but also about individual housing, as many of, because of the nature of the market in town. And for those particular units, then that's more tricky. I don't know how it might work. Maybe the city has some kind of agreement with the utility and some aggregation happens at the city. But that's also, I guess, that shouldn't be in the first phase of implementation,
Okay.
but it should be figured out.
Well, I just thought that was going to impact on the cost and whether there was a way that we could lower the cost.
I think we just kind of,
I-
I think at this stage, it's just an estimate of what
Yes.
the average cost would be. I don't think we want to get too specific with it. That's why I was wondering if they had a contract with somebody already, and it's like, oh, we just added this new module and it was X amount. You could say, okay, if we were to do something, it would probably be in that same range, because it's going to be about the same kind of data needs and inputs and things like that. So, I mean, the other option is you just reach out to a company and just say, hey, how much would something like this cost? And just get a rough estimate, or,
Yeah, there's a company doing something like what Dave mentioned when we first were talking about this utility API. I reached out to them and had a conversation with them, hopefully for a pilot that they do here, and they don't charge us for that. But they said we don't have any connections with the utilities in the region, and they said no, but they were interested. So I guess, but I didn't ask about the cost or anything, so maybe I can
Yeah.
reach back out and see.
I think I'm in line with Josh about getting the roughest of estimates, and then we can include a sentence that says more detailed budgetary analysis will be conducted upon your, like, favorable review.
yeah.
And I think it's important that we say something, as a statement, something like, we know the budget is already drawn out for this year, but this is something that could be considered for later years. I don't know.
Yeah. Would it be helpful to also include a few of the most common questions that were raised both here and from the public? Like, one thing I've heard every time I share this with anyone is, you can call the utility and ask. No, you can't. They won't disclose this. or people have different behavioral patterns in like, I want my place cool, I want my place hot. Yes, but we're talking about averages, and that says something. I think it might be helpful to have some of those questions answered, if they might be these questions for commissioners as well.
I think that's,
I think the only thing we want to be careful with, I agree, but like, I also don't think you want to make this too long or no one's going to read it. Right?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
have to be
absolutely.
Yeah.
pretty, you know, to
Succinct.
the point and just like, these are the big points, these are the things you're interested in, this is why, because I don't think they're going to take us and be like, yes, policy, right? They're going to be like, okay, this is worth exploring. Then we'll probably want to get into some of these other details.
That's
So I think we just have to be a little careful about not trying to put too much into this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this draft and the placeholders, again, I tried my best to model off of the 4 bullets that were directly from the city manager. So the first section's just straight from David Mosen's work with a little bit additional analysis from me on cost and impact. So the like 7.5% decrease, a total impact on reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. These are all us trying to quantify the impact on the KPIs. Same for dollar amounts saved per month and the impact that has on renter and security. So to the point, like Josh said, this is the impact it has on KPIs. And then in the presentation, if we get invited to do it, I think Mosen, a slide on FAQs makes a lot of sense.
okay.
The city's climate action plan from back in 2009 had an inventory, and I found this piece that I wrote 3 years ago. And based on the emissions reported in that inventory, I did this calculation for electricity and gas for the residential sector in town. This is combined of all types of residential units, and it approximately adds up to $75 million expenditure in utilities in the residential sector. So
So could we use that to
any
in
reduction
the
in that would be in
53?
terms of millions of dollars. Which, like, the ACEEE, or maybe NREL, I don't know. One of them says, like, Kansas residential units are 18%, have 18% more consumption than the average in the US. And I think I did some calculation here based on maybe that 18% savings, which gets us to like 13 million savings in the residential sector, which is equal to an annual budget for the transit or the library, and it's a lot.
Those seem like great numbers to add in.
Yep.
So how do you get to 18% here now? And how are you going to get an 18% reduction by having people enter information in a database?
That's a good question.
Well, I think it's because you want to, you motivate the landlords to improve, to make their places more competitive. Because the information is out
It's a
there.
tough economic game, you're already playing at the margins. At what point is it worth it to you to put in, say, $100,000 solar on your roof?
I think we're not talking about $100,000 solar. I think
That's
we're
what it
talking.
costs though, if you put a solar.
No, but I don't think that's where we're going. I think what we're-
$1,000 of
You have
retrofit,
to-
$1,000 of retrofit leads to $200-300 of savings, I guess, a year for a unit. So, and multiply that by the number of units, just $1,000.
Yeah, so, again, I have no argument, but
I mean, I think,
can't check out a number like 18% without some backing.
No, 18% is not possible community-wide.
So
And
then what number do we throw out?
Well,
We
I
can't
honestly, I'm
promise
not sure
that.
the money is the sell here to the city, right? Because that money is saved for the residents, right? The sell to the city here is that we're reducing greenhouse gases as a community, and that's part of the KPI, right? So I don't even know if we want to
Yeah.
That's a
include.
side product of this, not the main point here.
Yeah, and but
We
I
want to
think
reduce emissions.
I mean,
Right.
that does address that housing stress, right? That SWN
that one
5.
is limited administrative
But-
It's possible then, just in case a commissioner is me, or has similar questions, that you may want to avoid the dollar figures and the percentages and talk about things in a more general sense. Because it is going to reduce greenhouse gases. It could potentially, you could have some very low-cost improvements that would help quite a bit.
Yeah,
And it might be worth focusing on those and not a number which leads to questions which
okay.
you don't want to answer.
yeah.
Okay.
That's why no one has ever seen this piece. It was just for me.
Yeah.
Well,
And I mean, it's a good estimate, but I just don't know if it's the right way to even try to do this, because, yeah.
So maybe we don't
Does
put
that
in the
save us?
dollars here. I think that's a good idea, because
I
it
think-
does raise more issues than maybe it addresses.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, I think we just want to address the two KPIs we're focusing on, right? And at least the one that I'm familiar with, the one that we've thought about, does not really address money. It's all about greenhouse gas emissions. So that's what we should focus on the benefits here. I don't know what the SWN 5 is all about.
Can I speak to that? I do think where I put on the first paragraph of background, the last sentence of the first paragraph on background and rationale, using the numbers from David Mosen's work and extrapolating that on like, actual decreases, I think we could do something like a 15% reduction at renter for renter properties would equal a particular amount of savings. And if 53 to 57% of our housing market are renters, we could estimate a total dollar amount that's saved by renters in our city, which can go towards other expenses, which addresses the housing stress KPI. Like people are under severe housing stress. This policy not only reduces greenhouse gas, it also puts money back in people's pocket who are at risk within our community.
okay.
Yeah, I think that would be the rationale to include those calculations, right? If it's addressing that housing stress one. But maybe this is where we need to get the folks in the other advisory, the housing one, maybe they've thought about this a little bit more. Maybe they could help us write that part of it.
Yeah, and I think the other part that's important here in this section is there's a sentence in the second paragraph that explains that what Dave's asking, like requiring transparent reporting and providing the benchmark uses consumer demand, which we've outlined here, as a market-based incentive for landlords to make upgrades. Like that's what makes this a good policy for the city. It costs very little. You're basically using transparency in a marketplace to ensure that landlords are held to high standards of
Yeah.
energy efficiency. So, I mean, it's not going to probably, it's a hypothetical, like ideally we do bring rental rates or rental energy usage rates down to owner occupied, but
So
You know,
we just
how-
hope it approaches that. We don't ever expect it to be the same. I think that would be
yeah,
beyond where we would hope. But I think you, by pointing out the differential, that there is room for improvement.
right.
Yeah. I think we also need to think about the timeline and the key milestones. And I think the one that you guys talked about last time was public engagement. So I think that would be a great second milestone is public engagement, right? Get feedback from the public, get feedback from renters and landlords about how they feel about it. But maybe the first one is to flesh out policy options and then go to public engagement. Because that would be something that we would
You
all
know, to
make
some
sure.
extent, the journal world is doing that for us by
Yeah.
putting Mosin in there and then writing that article last time. And the fact is, nobody's here. So the takeaway from that might be the landlords don't really, this isn't a huge burden on them because they don't really care.
Yeah,
And if they did, then somebody would come and comment on it. So maybe the journal world is solving that problem for us.
and I think the Lawrence Times being here, you guys are helping us also. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So perhaps we comment on that.
I don't know how much public outreach, you know, you're getting public outreach. You're getting public outreach because this is generating some press. You have, and I don't hear a huge outcry.
Mhm.
And that right there is outreach.
Yeah,
And we've talked about for renters, you know, there's no downside for renters. Well, I guess there might be because your rent might go up a hair, but you're gonna save more in utilities than the extra you pay in rent. So
Mhm.
there's really no downside for renters at all. It's great information to have.
but I think if we don't put public engagement as part of the milestones, that would be a hole that would be brought up by the commission.
That's
We can mention that we've gotten press and limited, and no pushback from the public,
That's fair.
yeah. Other milestones you think we need to put there for our projected timeline to move from preliminary to implementation?
How specific is that timeline intended to be? Is it just like, oh, early next year we would do X, or would it be like, this month we would do that? Because then I'm just trying to work back in my head, like,
Yeah.
if when we would have a response from them on this would shift when we would want to build that timeline out.
I don't know that we actually put in dates or we put in milestones. What do
Okay,
you
so just like ordered steps then, more than,
That's what I was thinking, but I don't
Okay.
know, do we need to put in time, dates? Kathy, what do you think?
You guys decide.
I think from my perspective, at this stage, let's not try to do anything too specific. I just think
Yeah.
steps, this is the process you would take. These are kind of the milestones we'd want to reach to implement it, right?
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too, yeah. So just maybe something like fleshing out options.
I think your first milestone has to be deciding on what policy are you trying to put forward. Now, I know we can't write policy, but the fact is there is a very good start of one sitting here that would have to then go through city staff. So before you can even ask the question, we're thinking about doing this, how do you feel about that? We have to know what we're thinking about doing, which means we have to know what the extent of the mandate is. And if that's burdensome, then you probably get some pushback on it. If it's easy and it's good for everybody and you set up a win-win, then everything probably sails right ahead. But I do think milestone one has to be, what's the question? What is the mandate? What are we trying to do? And I don't think we've made that decision. We have a policy, but it's not clear that we want to implement every piece of that.
I have an idea of like two very practical, intangible first steps. I think if directed, yes, I think we could set up a joint meeting with the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and that could be a first step, and we could talk through our ideas, hear from them more formally, and clarify, like Dave said, what is the mandate or policy that we're interested in. From there, there's existing organizations in the community who do community engagement and can be our ear to the ground across landlords, renters, everybody. We could send this to the emerging group, the Coalition for Collaborative Governance. We could say, hey, we just had this joint meeting. Here's an idea we put forth. The city's interested. Can you get community input on this? Because that would save city resources. We're not speaking on behalf of the board outside of the board meeting. And then once we have feedback from that community-based group on what they think of this policy, we also have the feedback from the news articles. Then we can clarify and start doing more practical work, like a budget analysis that's more detailed, going through and actually clarifying the mandate. Does that make sense to people or no?
It actually seems like a good idea to keep it very focused instead of very broad. So you're going to take an existing policy draft, take it to a specific group, get feedback, very, very targeted step. That may be a better approach.
I did want to just mention, and Mohsen can correct me if I'm wrong or if I misread the email, but I did just want to make you all aware that the board that you're talking about, AHAB, it sounded like the staff liaison said was going into a very busy season. So this would be something that could be on their agenda for 2026. So I just want to highlight that. If I read it correctly, that's
I think.
that's where she was thinking, 2026 for a joint meeting or
I think
for
it
them
would be
to-
fair to say that, like, we have their support and we are in contact with them for this letter.
Yeah, but I just heard
Yeah.
joint meeting, so I just wanted to provide you that context of when that joint meeting could possibly be.
So maybe we flip it and say we'll do the public engagement first, and then we'll go to the joint meeting with that.
I just know that that particular group, Coalition for Collaborative Governance, is working through the affordable housing ideas currently. So I'm okay flipping it. I just wanted to flag that too. Like that process is already underway. So I personally am time agnostic because I think there's many different policies that we can be working on. So if we don't have times in this, timeline, if we're just saying these are the milestones, and it means that we bring this policy back up at the start of 2026 with that meeting, because that's the most logical first step.
Yeah.
That's fine. That gives us 3 more meetings to work on other policies while we wait.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
just my,
Okay.
I was gonna say that I'm like time agnostic too, but then Kathy, question to you is like, if we have this joint meeting, is it possible that that's like with enough, 30 days or something notice, that that's like an additional meeting, or does it necessarily have to be like the one time that we meet, the one time that AHAB meets for whatever month that may be?
It can be decided by the boards, whether it's one of the board's meeting time or it's a unique date, like separate from your board meetings. And maybe each board then decides not to meet that month because they're going to meet on a unique date. But that's for the boards to decide.
Okay, yeah, because obviously I know we're all doing this in like a, volunteer personal capacity, whatever, but just wondered if they're very busy with other things on their set agenda, if that doesn't open the possibility to do things sooner, but also whatever order we do it in, I'm not too picky. Just a thought.
Kathy, can I clarify a procedural thing? Like what's within our, is that okay?
Yeah.
If a group like Coalition for Collaborative Governance was interested in having someone talk about this at some sort of community event, obviously Mohsen knows the most about this, does that break the rules if he's speaking as an individual who knows lots about things, but it's also clear that he was involved in putting this together?
Okay. You're putting me in a really hard spot.
Sorry. Can Mohsen attend and speak to his expertise on energy efficiency and energy policy as an individual?
Yes, as an individual, he can meet with any group. He's still doing his research for his KU PhD, but
Doctoral program.
yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he can meet with groups, but really what I'm hearing is a little bit of a runaround, maybe, I don't even know if that's the right term, with getting some like outreach or community engagement.
Yes.
From basically not the city. This would be like a separate organization. So I will just kind of stress that in the past, I've seen this where the commission, wants to make sure that the community engagement is aligned with our community engagement department, our communications and
Okay.
community engagement. I know that at times, when advisory boards have gone forward, they'll say, are you working with the cities team, communications team and community engagement. So if there's a disconnect there, where, you know, maybe community engagement is happening in other ways, and not aligned with what the city's community
Yeah.
engagement is, there might be, again, just questions there. Why is it not aligned? You are you're appointed to a city advisory board. And I understand, by the way, that, you know, and we talked about this at the last meeting, how all these departments for the city have their work plans already, figured out through the end of the year, and some of them through 2026. So it's not like we can just say, hey, department, stop working on what you're working on so that you can do some community engagement over here with this advisory board or with this other department. I mean, these are things that need to be planned out with time. So it's not that quick, you know, hey, next month we're going to be doing some community engagement.
So maybe we don't put in the details. We just say the second goal is community engagement, and we leave it at that, because we don't need to have all those details in there, right?
Yeah.
So. from
I'm
what
just
I-
making sure, Chris, did I address that? Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure.
No, I understand.
So what I'm hearing is, and give me feedback, correct me if I'm wrong. Number one would be a joint meeting with the Affordable Housing Committee. Number two would be public engagement, and then number three would be refine and budget analysis. Does that work? Are you okay
Yeah.
with that?
Yep.
That's good.
Okay.
Just a question, not related to this, but would it be possible and helpful to invite property managers to our next meeting to ask what their concerns might be, what would be challenging to them?
My personal opinion is let's get this letter done and get it to the commission first.
Not related to the letter.
But I'm sort of the opinion, like, I don't want to spin my wheels on this anymore unless we get the blessing from the commission to work on it. Just because I think that's a great idea and we should definitely do that if that's something we are going to be doing. But in mind of efficiency and all the other things we could be working on, I feel like we have enough to write this letter. We should get this letter, make sure it's something they want us to do. And then I think there's a lot of those things would be great to do. That's
Makes
sort of my opinion on that.
I agree.
And then the other piece that we're missing would be what resources we need to execute those three goals. Right?
If it sounds like we need some coordination with the community engagement and public outreach team at the city, at some level, whether that's, you know, sharing something out on the website. I don't know what that looks like, but we will be sending them something with a request to do some public outreach.
Would this include reaching out to whoever in the city would be, have to end up running this thing? So in other words, trying to get some feel for costs for that. So setting up a meeting, not just with community outreach, but basically IT, whoever IT is.
Yeah, that would be that last one, right, the budget analysis.
I thought you were asking, how do we get the budget analysis done? I thought that was the last question.
No, mine was each of those three goals. So we've got these three milestones. We need to have the resources for each one.
Right, so,
So that would be what we would need for the budget analysis. That would be what we would need for the last one.
right, we would need access to the people that would actually be doing it.
Okay,
I thought that's the question you were asking. But maybe-
okay. That's part of it.
I want to clarify again, and I'm sorry I say this a lot, but to, Chris mentioning, the ask. So advisory boards and advisory board members don't request the department to do work. You don't request that from the sustainability department. You don't, reach out to legal and say, I need you to write this ordinance for me. Or for our group. You don't go to the communications office. What you do is policy recommendation to the commission. The commission decides this is a priority and they want to move forward with it. It is the commission who's going to direct the city manager, who's going to direct the departments to work on this.
But they're asking us in this question, I think, is what would the city need to, who would the city need to direct it to? It's not our part to do it, but it's our piece to say what they may need to do.
Correct. I was
Who
just
they
hearing,
need to-
I was just hearing board members saying we would reach out to
For
communications and tell them to do
asking
this.
questions, wouldn't it be possible to like, if,
It's their time though, right? So I don't know. Yeah.
Like, I'm hearing, asking them, like, whoever would be the one, were this to pass one day, how much time, like staff time or whatever would this take? Like, what would the cost be? So not asking them to do it, but just, can we ask them to tell us what their costs would be? Or do we have to just say, this is the person, and then the commission later goes to that person to ask the cost? Or are we supposed to, like, put the cost in? Like, it kind of feels a little chicken or the egg.
When you have questions about some of that city information, direct it to me. So your staff liaison, what are your questions that are needing to be answered? And I can let you know we have that information. I can reach out to the other departments. This happened previously too with the other board. There was board members reaching out to our city attorney's office. There were board members reaching out to our planning and development services. And the appropriate way is if you have questions about like city budget, city priorities, that type of stuff, or like how much is this gonna cost, even if you know that I'm gonna have to go ask somebody else, just do it through your staff liaison.
And that's what I.
So it sounds like in the bullet of what resources we need, it's as simple as Kathy's time and energy and support, which will take, so that the committee knows that we're going to take her away from some other priorities. Same for the community engagement and public outreach team. And then same for probably like the legal team and people who would write an ordinance, because we will likely need Kathy to liaise for us with that team. Correct?
Yeah.
I wonder if we shouldn't keep this just as simple as possible. I mean, this is the idea. Here's the savings in other places. Are you interested? End of discussion.
Yeah, we were just trying to fill in the blanks of what the city manager asked us to do. And do we think that's important, or do
But
we
it
just
sounds
ignore
like
what he says?
it's near impossible to get the information.
Well, we don't need the specific information. I think all we need to do is say, for outreach, we need to have the community engagement and outreach group work with us, or do this. And then for the budget analysis, it's whoever does the budget analysis for IT group, right? So we put it on them. We don't do it ourselves. We don't say we're going to do it. We just say, these are the groups in the city that are going to need to have input into the development of this policy.
I guess my point would be, if at this point, what we care about is the commission saying that's a good idea, then maybe the least amount of detail is the way to go. Because it is a good idea. On its surface, it's a very good idea. The details are going to just be massively annoying. But on its surface, it is a very good idea. So if what you're going with is, would you like to reduce carbon in the atmosphere? Absolutely.
Okay.
That would,
Yeah.
but once you get beyond that into the details, then things get messy.
Yeah, so my personal opinion is this should probably be about 1 page when we're done. I'm just looking at it. So I think this is a great start. I actually wonder if the better way forward right now, because I feel like we've talked about a lot of things. I think we've talked about a lot of good suggestions in getting this, would be actually just to have somebody work on it and then get it on the next agenda early, so that we all have time to go through and mark up and edit and have suggestions for our next meeting to try to finalize it a bit more.
Okay.
Does that sound reasonable?
And vote on it.
And then vote on it if
Or
everyone's happy with
or
it?
if we need more time, vote on it the next time.
Yeah, depending on where we're at, and
Where
like
we
if
are.
everyone's happy with it, then yeah, we could probably vote on it, but.
I took some notes of what we discussed here.
So is-
If somebody wants to use
Is
that.
Chris gonna keep going with this, or does somebody else want to take that on?
Do you want to take it over?
Chris started it. I love it.
Okay.
Keep doing the
It's
great
like,
work.
"Oh, no, what have I gotten myself into?"
No, it's good. I'll incorporate feedback and try to shorten it.
Okay. All right. I think we're pretty much out of time, aren't we?
Yeah,
Do
I
that
can
last
just
thing.
address number 2 really quick.
Okay.
So just future ESAB meeting agenda items, I mentioned that earlier, but there's something that's missing on here, which is the letter Chloe had volunteered to draft for you all to review and provide feedback, and that will be the next meeting? Yeah, okay. And that's just regarding the board had agreed to write a letter regarding the land development code parking mandate, and you received some information from public comment at the last meeting. And then the item that is on here is to review and provide feedback on the updated draft of ordinance 9744. I did link to the original version of it. I don't know if it's going to be this next meeting or the following one. So please don't think it's like right, in 30 days necessarily. We want to make sure we have good time. It might be something that we discuss over 2 meetings or maybe 3. It's not just a quick move unless,
When do you
everything
expect
aligns. I'm sorry?
that? When do you expect that?
I'm not sure at this time, so I don't want to give you a date and then it not happen. But what I'm saying, it may not be in this next month, but probably the following. So we do want to get started on that discussion with this board as well as with the Connected City Advisory Board. So the 2 of you are the groups that the commission had asked staff to work with. And I don't know necessarily that that's going to be a joint meeting between the 2 boards, but I'm going to be talking with the staff liaisons of Connected City and kind of figure out timeline with them as well, if that's
So should we
okay.
put this as a priority for the next meeting? Start with this discussion of 9744?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to be ready for next meeting is what I'm saying, but
Oh,
the
okay.
following one, yes. But there's
Okay.
some coordination that's going to happen. So I just wanted to just put it on there that it's going to come up. We've talked about it at the beginning, but of this new advisory board, but just FYI.
Okay. So there are some changes that we would be discussing, but we
Yes.
need to have the changes first, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Staff will basically provide you an updated draft because that's an easier way to start the conversation.
Okay,
But yeah.
sounds good.
Yep.
All right. Shall we adjourn?
Yep. Thanks, Chris.
All right, thanks, everybody.